Hello, how are we doing? I don't want this to be a long one because I have literally got such a banging headache and I have taken painkillers and it saved me for about half an hour and now it's back to hurting again. So I don't know if it's because I was fighting on the weekend. I don't know if it's because I have not hydrated myself, although I've damn well tried. I don't know what it is, but I feel like it's something to do with the bright lights are not helping either. So I'm going to try and stop staring at screens in a moment. But I have a few little stories that I wanted to share with you that would not really be appropriate to have their own video because they're not that long. So I'm going to try and run through a few things that happened to me at Taekwondo competitions that were just a little bit unhinged. So for this first story, I was going to a GTI competition in Cheltenham. I do not remember which one it was, but I do remember that it was the last one that happened before lockdown. I think it was like a British Championships or something. I remember I had been to my first ever squad session for ITC squad, and I had travelled directly from Bolton through Manchester down to the area in Birmingham, done the squad training session, and then continued down south down to Cheltenham. And then I ended up getting there at my, not Airbnb, like booking.com, but like my place to stay crazy late. And it wasn't a venue, it was a place that allowed you to put in a code and you got like a little lockbox and then they gave you a key and then you had like a room in effectively a HMO full of people renting it who don't really interact with each other and they're just strangers in this house. You have a single room, which is yours, and then you got a communal kitchen, communal bathroom, everything else is open, right? So I got there and I had developed a blister from squad training when I was competing the next day, so that was fun. I had no tools with me in order to give myself first aid of any kind. I have learned from previous experience that it's best to just let a blister lie, but I knew if I was going to be repeating the same motions that I'd done all that previous day while I was at the event, that it was going to hurt like hell. So my option really was to burst the blister and then drain it and then go to the medic the very next morning. So before we even started, I was going up to the medic like, could you just please bandage me real quick? Because it was really bad. So I had to like gouge out myself with tweezers, and then a bunch of blood came out all over the sheets, and I feel really bad for whoever had to clean that up. I'm not going to lie. They didn't take any fees from me, but, you know, that was a thing. But that wasn't the problem. That's what I spent my evening doing. I was just shoveling snacks, trying to, like, wound myself preemptively, and I had a shower, and then I went to bed. But I was really struggling to get to bed because it was really hot, and I had decided that I was going to just sort of, like, deal with it, because I didn't want to get up to open the window. Now, I hadn't opened the window the entire time I was in this little booked room that I had. It had no real facilities in there, just a bed and a little desk, and I feel like I remember there being a cupboard that was locked, which is already not reassuring anyway. And then, like, the whole wall was window, and I just had a big curtain there, and I hadn't looked into it. And I was on the ground floor, just as I was drifting off to sleep after this exhausting day that I've had, which started at like 8 a.m. that morning, and now we're at like 11 p.m. if not midnight. I struggle to get to sleep no matter how tired I am, but I finally managed to pass out in this heat, and then I wake up to a really disturbing noise, and it was the sound of like some light knocking on the window, and I didn't know what to do about that, so I stayed very still for a moment to see if I could assess the situation that was going on. And there was some person at my window saying, "Hello, hello." And it was like, I don't even remember exactly what he was saying, but it was like, he sounded so drunk. And I am in the middle of this, let's admit it, it's not a very nice town. It's got like 2 shops or something, and then it's just outreaching suburbia. And I've been to actual venues to stay at hotels after this event, and those weren't very nice either. That went on for about 10 to 20 minutes. And he was just knocking gently and asking for help and going hello, and I was like, you know what, this really isn't my problem. And even if this guy has legitimate reason for knocking on my window, it's not really a concern of mine right now. I want to go to sleep. So I just left it. And then the next morning I go and I see, did he ever actually close the window? And it turns out it was just a giant glass door. So he had fully just let himself into this door, which had been unlocked all night. My best deduction is that it's a guy who was staying in one of the other rooms and he had like lost his key or forgotten his key, because if you go to like the bathroom without your key, you're locked out of your room, and that almost happened to me the first time I went to go pee in this place. So that was fun. Went to the competition next day being like, well, if he had got in and tried to murder me, I was probably one of the best prepared people he could have done to it, but that didn't happen. So in this same sort of similar stint, I think because I had about 5 or 6 competitions where I was competing basically consecutively every week. Now, one of the later ones I went to was one in Bath, and I had never been to Bath before. I stayed over at a hostel. It was really nice. I woke up at the crack of dawn. I had to strip my bed in this room of like 20 different people because it's like a really cheap hostel. I think it's the cheapest hostel I've ever stayed in for a competition. I think it was like £9 for the night. It was so cheap. So it made up for the fact that the train cost a bomb, but whatever. So stripped off my stuff, dragged down my bedding with my rucksack, my suitcase, because I was staying overnight and I needed a lot of supplies for that, I think. And then I had my my sparring bag as well. So I had collected all this stuff, dragged it downstairs, and then I started making my way to the competition hall, which was at the university. Now, I'd never been to Bath before. I didn't know where the university was. I didn't have any advice from Google to take public transport. It just said, you can walk, and it showed me the map, and I was like, that's not far, walk at all, I can do that. Except Google Maps doesn't really tell you the incline you're working with. So I was trekking up this, basically a sheer cliff with massive bags weighing me down. I did have my laptop in my rucksack as well, and I tend to not take my laptop on one night stays anymore for competitions. I tend to do it for 2 night stays because I get bored. But when you're traveling on your own and you're not there with anyone, because I wasn't like part of a squad, or I wasn't really like, this was the stint of making most of my friends from Taekwondo competitions. This was like when I was building that up and sort of getting used to meeting people at events. So I was there truly just on my Todd. No one from my club came with me. I was there alone. So I took my laptop with me, so it was heavy. And then it starts pouring with rain, absolutely drowning with rain. Like, I could stick my hand out and I would feel the weight of the water on my arm while I'm going up this hill with a wheelie bag as well, which is trying to drag me back down the hill. If anything, it would be easier to just have a rucksack. Maybe that's why backpackers do it. And I was just making my way there. I was not enjoying it. And this was the one time I ended up actually hitchhiking, because a guy stopped in his car and he said, hey, are you going to the university? And in my head I was like, how does he know I'm going to the university? But also I'm pretty sure that's like the only place that was at the top of the hill at this point. He was like, are you going to the university? Would you like a lift? Would you like to get in the car? And I did a quick calculation in my head of, okay, maybe he's trying to murder me, but he's making a really poor choice on this if he wants to, because he is going to have to get rid of all my stuff. So I got in there and I was dripping wet through, and he got me to the event, and I ended up being late for it, and I was almost disqualified because I missed weigh-in, and the only reason I didn't have to do that was because I was in the heaviest weight division anyway, so, you know, there's no risk of having to be moved up or down. Because, like, if you're too light and you want to go in the heavier one, I feel like they'd let you anyway, but that was not fun at all. My mum was not at all happy when I told her what I did. She was like, you should never do that before, but I didn't, like, pull him down. He stopped, and I was like, it's fine, it's fine. I had loads of fighting memorabilia on me, whatever. Now, although both of those were incredibly distressing to me at the time, I'm sure it sounds pretty mild from your perspective, but this one I'm going to round off with is kind of the most insane one I think I've got. So these two were before lockdown, and then we get into lockdown, and we move on to the era of online competitions. And I don't really care about online competitions because I'm not really a patterns kind of girl. I tend to since I've become a black belt, I tend to get disqualified more than I actually lose at patterns, because I sort of do all my pattern really well, often better than I actually do it in training, and then I freak out because I like mess up one move and I turn the wrong way, and then I sort of pause too long, and then you're disqualified because you don't finish the pattern. But I was sort of getting silvers and bronzes at this time, and I was determined to enter as many online competitions as I could because I was going for International Taekwondo Council Competitor of the Year, which I actually did end up winning this year, spoiler alert, and I made a terrible video about it at the time, which I wish I could remake because the production quality was awful compared to now. But I was entering a bunch of online competitions because I was second in place in the league table, and I was constantly swapping places with this, I'm pretty sure she was actually a child, I have no idea who she is, but I kept seeing her name pop up, and we were like swapping places. So I knew that if I was going to get Competitor of the Year, which I'd been like paying a lot of money to attend events that I really couldn't afford to go to, and like stacking myself and training every week diligently for like 2-3 months straight with no real kind of break or downward Peter at any point. I was getting golds at all of these events. So I was like, I have to win this league because I don't want to do this again with such fervor. Although I did actually end up getting like second place the following year as well. So that was cool. But I entered this online competition, and this was one hosted by a group in America called NAFMA. I ended up doing an interview with Grandmaster Jose Torres at one point. I kind of wanted to interview him for With Respect, to be honest. I don't know if he'd be interested in that. And it was all really cool. I was literally running out of online competitions in the UK to do, so I started going and looking at the abroad ones because it's all online. What does it matter? And then I ended up meeting some people at these online competitions who ended up showing up in the same divisions as me over and over in these online events that I had not met anyone before. So it's lockdown, you want to make new friends, you start messaging the people who are in the same events as you, because like if you're in an actual in-person competition, you would be chatting to them on ringside, so why is it weird? And I can't remember the name of this guy for the life of me. I've gone back into my Facebook records to try and find his profile. I'm pretty sure it's deleted at this point because I've looked at pretty much every message I even had from 2020 to like 2024 and I don't see his name anywhere. There's just a bunch of Facebook user, so he's probably deleted his profile or I can't find it in the mess. But we were chatting, we were getting to know each other, and over the course of a few days I was like, is he flirting with me? He has a wife. I don't think he's flirting with me, because like a lot of the time I'm really paranoid about this kind of stuff, but then I'm proven right, so I was like, should I believe it? But I was like, no, he's not done anything too weird. He could just be being really friendly. It's lockdown. Social rules don't necessarily apply right now. Maybe we're all just a bit cooped up and forgetting how to speak to humans. So we just chatted for a few weeks, and that was totally normal. And then just one day, out of nowhere, he sends me a video of him flogging a woman, and they're both completely naked. It was not even kind of in relation to what we were speaking about at the time. All the conversation had been entirely martial arts focused up until that point. And you would think that was the end of this story. You'd think it was like, whatever, block him, move on with your life. It is not the end of the story. So this guy was from like Europe, Middle Europe, I don't know, it was like somewhere around Estonia, but I don't think it was Estonia. It was a country that I don't think I even had heard of before. But whatever, we come back from lockdown a few years later, and I go to a competition in Manchester, which is my local event at the time. It was a bootle event, and I was there, again, on my own, even though it's relatively local to me. I don't have people from my club who want to come to competitions very often at this point in time, and there was no one from our organisation's association who seemed to know about the event, so I was there on my Todd. I had decided to latch on to the Liverpool University team, and they were the people I was hanging out with for the day, and it was all chill, but I go off on my own quite a lot at competitions just to sort of get in the zone, do my warm-ups, you know, practice my patterns, do my stretches, just sort of get in the fighting mindset. So I'm on my own quite a lot of the time. And then while I'm over by the warm-up area, someone comes up to me. And it's this dude who had told me that after lockdown, he was pretty much retiring from competitions. So I had never expected him to just pop up in this country that he said he doesn't ever go to at the same event as me. So I was immediately thinking stalker mode, complete, like, freaking out. Because I was like, I don't feel unsafe. What's he gonna do? He never technically did anything inappropriate after sending me the video because I just ignored him. Like, he didn't, like, get super creepy. I think maybe he accompanied it with a message about, like, wanting his services, implying that he was, like, a male escort of sorts, but also, like, it was online and lockdown, so I really don't understand where he was going with it. I never met this guy in person, and we'd only spoken because we entered the same competition where you send in a video of yourself doing a pattern, so it was like, okay, guy, chill. But he comes up to me, and he starts speaking as if nothing ever happened of that nature. He doesn't remember that I just completely started ignoring him after that very bold interaction. And I played it cool. I was like, nothing's gonna happen here. We're at a competition. There's cameras everywhere. If he is gonna try and fight me, I'll just get another medal right here, right now. What is the issue? I was like, I know who the organizer is. If he gets creepy, I'll go up to him and ask for some help. But I don't really feel compelled to. And he starts talking to me about, like, oh yeah, my brother's here, and he's gonna, like, this is his last event. I've got an injury right now, but, you know, maybe we could, like, hang out sometime. And he was, like, implying that he wanted to, you know, keep in touch again. And I was just like, no. So I kind of did that thing where you're politely answering the questions, but you're doing it in a manner where it's like, okay, yeah, sure. You know, giving nothing back at all. And eventually he walked away, right? But there's just something about that just made it, like, a little bit creepy, because I did post that I was going to that event, like, a week before entries closed, so it just makes me wonder. You know, we're all adults, but I just thought that was something that I should document, because quite frankly, I'm pretty sure in 20 years I'm going to forget that was ever a thing, or I'm going to start thinking it was a fever dream. It was just really unnerving. So yeah, please don't do that in the future, people who know who I am. Join my Discord server, talk about martial arts with me, actually get to know me. If you want to start engaging in that level of stuff, maybe warm up to it a little bit. Just saying. Those are just a few of my little stories that definitely weren't worthy of their own video, but I hope you found them entertaining in little snippets anyway. Thank you, have a nice day, subscribe, goodbye.